Right, well this is Tuesday, our second day in Jerusalem. We're on the east side and we've had to, as it were, reverse from where we were going because we've just literally got caught up in a bit of a situation with young lads throwing stones at the taxi, shooting, hand grenades being lobbed in the air. One literally hit the tarmac concrete area to the right of us, about 50 yards away. So things got very interesting. So the taxi driver here has obviously reversed as all the other vehicles did going up the hill, and now we're going to obviously meet up with Peter at the Church of Gethsemane, and you're going to hear some amazing news from Peter here as well.
Were they firing off back there? Boom! Was that a little bomb, hand grenade?
Yes.
Yeah, it was hand grenade, yeah?
It's very dangerous here today.
Yeah.
Very dangerous here today. Here's another taxi.
It is, we're in very dangerous times. I didn't saw any smoke. Yes, I did. Did you? Yes. Over to the right. I heard it.
Yeah,
I
did.
That
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounded like a hand grenade.
Wasn't it?
At least we got come up with.
This is your.
I think it is, yeah.
Is that one in front of us?
Can't see.
She's to wem, she's to wem.
Yeah, but it's because he's trying to connect to the taxis with Peter. I know, this is their way. Can you see who's in front?
Well, it looks like I can't quite see them.
I wonder where all of them shooting.
Exciting, eh? 100 yards away from a hand grenade going off. Yeah.
Just here. I'm ringing more out on the mobile, but it won't call. It's
Is that him?
Is that
yes.
them? Oh, thank you very much.
That's good stuff.
So you actually still we paid on 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, don't worry about it.
No, but we need to.
Yeah, okay.
What was that? I've been to the physio twice. We don't pay me 1 week. Oh, there's more.
Look at music.
Oh, I can see more. There's more. Yeah, but it's all right. We don't need to phone. See more. As long as we're together, it's fine. So yes.
Okay. So we're gonna get here. Oh. Yeah. Okay.
Actually, because we're not.
We had originally intended to start at the top of the Mount of Olives and make our way down to this point. But it happens that there are a lot of very important meetings taking place, and so the whole area is congested with authorities and troops and police and so on. So we decided to ask our taxi driver to drop us here, and this is in the Garden of Gethsemane. Of course, Gethsemane means the olive press. And here we're going to see, first of all, some of the ancient olive trees that are connected with the Garden of Gethsemane. So over here, as we go out to look across, these are the ancient olive trees of Gethsemane. Now they look in this state simply because an olive tree under normal circumstance will never die. It will die back to its root formation and then begin to grow all over again. So some of these olive trees are at least 1,000 years old and may even be of a greater age than that. if we were to cross over the road, which of course we're not able to do, we would see the area of Gethsemane in its original state. But this has been cultivated and of course prepared for the thousands of visitors that come here. We shall go in a moment into the church, which is generally called the All Nations Church, but it is the Church of Gethsemane. It's called the All Nations Church because all nations contributed towards its cost and towards its building. It's a very unique church, as you will see when we go inside, because it was here where Jesus was captured and he was taken back to Ananias, who was the high priest for that season, to be judged by the Sanhedrin. But we shall go inside the church and we shall spend time meditating on our Lord's suffering and all that accrued and has been centered since by pilgrims from all ages, from all over the world, who have come here to Gethsemane.
You're right. So 5 o'clock?
С вами переходим сюда. It
reminds me a little bit of the major icons.
Okay, and then for you to ask,
It belongs to the Franciscan monk sisters. The actual garden area, that's the Church of All Nations there, of course. Now, we shall get a better view of this, but I'll point it out now. If you like to come and stand about here, you can see the Golden Gate. It's the only gate that is not in use. And the cleavage that will take place will come approximately into this area, because the fountain that springs up according to the Old Testament prophets from the temple site, that it eventually becomes a powerful river, will flow all the way down to the River Jordan and the Dead Sea and sweeten the Dead Sea. And the prophecy is that fishermen will be able to cast their nets once again into the Dead Sea, at least the northern section of the Dead Sea, to catch their fish. Now, of course, the dedicated and illuminated Jews, they know this. So they're going to be building fisheries by the side of that portion of the Dead Sea so that they can fill it with fresh fish once the miracle takes place. But it will be a miracle, because I remember the times when the Dead Sea bordered on the Qumran hill portion of the Judean desert, and that's where of course they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. But there's something like 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles now, to be able to get down to the Dead Sea area. The evaporation, of course, has been intense. The reason for that is because the River Jordan provides the water for the Dead Sea. But on its 90-odd mile journey from the Sea of Galilee, it is being siphoned off for irrigation purposes. And so the Dead Sea is not being supplied with the water supply that it did in the olden days. But that's another story which we hope to deal with on another day. I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll go on the steps there and take it. Okay, right. Now this is the eastern wall of the old city. Remember, this was not here like this in the days of Jesus. These walls were built by Solomon. We call him Solomon the Great, or you know, the outstanding Solomon, the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Empire. But the Golden Gate is the gate that you see there. It's the only one of the 8 gates of the old city that's sealed up. We believe that when Jesus comes with his saints in Revelation chapter 19, that there will be a crack, an earthquake that will divide those gates and bring them open. And a stream, a river eventually will spring out of the temple site, make its way down here, right down to the Dead Sea, which is at the moment, of course, furnished with water from the Jordan River. Now, that will be sealed. And to make sure that it won't be opened, the Muslims have buried their dead there because they don't believe Jesus would walk over the sepulchres of the dead. You see my point? But we know the earthquake will divide it all open. It'll be a great quake, and it'll start there, and the fissure will run through here. Now, there's some question of whether it runs underneath this church, but it'll be somewhere in this vicinity. Right, now the golden dome you see there, of course, is the Mosque of Omar. And the gold actually is pure gold. And it was provided recently, well, by recently, probably about 30 years ago now, from Saudi Arabia, the money to buy the gold. And that's the Mosque of Omar. Now, as you run along the wall, you'll come to the point where the eastern wall goes south, and that's the point that you see right at the end there. That is called the pinnacle of the temple, and that's where Satan tempted Jesus to throw himself off that pinnacle, and that the angels would bear him up and keep him safe. And our Lord would not be tempted to do that. That's called the pinnacle of the temple. Right. So you're now under the Church of All Nations, which is the Church of Gethsemane, basically. But it's called All Nations because after the First World War, all nations contributed to the purchase of this church as a symbol of universal peace and so on and so on. No more wars and no more fightings. But of course we've actually, history teaches us now that there was a Second Great War and so on and so on. This area was captured in 1917 by the Allied forces. They moved up south, and General Allenby was in charge of those forces. He was an English general. Alongside him came Lawrence of Arabia. Now, the story of Lawrence of Arabia I cannot share with you this morning. We'll do that in an evening session. But Lawrence had an amazing part to play in this area and in what was to happen here in the future. In fact, I believe, and many others, that it was Lawrence of Arabia that paved the way for the state of Israel to exist as it does today. Now, Lawrence of Arabia was converted to Christ in 1906, and I can tell you the story of Lawrence because it is a unique story. 43 books have been written about him, and there is some Christian connections in some of the books, but none have given the detail which I happen to have supplied to me, that he was converted in Canon Christopher's home, which was a retirement home, because he had retired from St. Aldate's in Oxford. It's a wonderful story. But he and his mother and two brothers were converted, and Lawrence of Arabia's mother actually went out to China as a missionary. She died there in her 94th year and is buried in China.